Zdravo, dobrodošli u još jedan od mojih live-ova. Današnji gost je Kristijan koji vodi profil Kangaroo English. Jedan veoma zanimljiv čovjek. I sa njim ću pričati o njegovim pogledima na učenje jezika, na usvajanje jezika, zašto on to zagovara spaljivanje klasičnih tradicionalnih udžbenika i zašto želi da vodi revoluciju. Evo ga, pa će nam se sad pridružiti.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Ah, nice.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
I can. Can you hear me? Because I'm not sure about the quality of this this microphone.
It's all good. It's all perfect.
Okay. Good. So where do you live? Is it Sasha?
Yes,
Okay.
you can pronounce it Sasha, and I'm from Serbia.
Okay. Nice.
In Balkan.
Yeah. I don't really know a lot about like Serbian culture or anything, so it's interesting.
Well, I mean, a mix of a lot of things. We were always in the crossroads of East and West, so a little bit of everything here.
Okay.
It's and very nice and welcoming people. So
Okay.
once you decide to visit, I'm sure you'll have a great time.
I would love to visit. Yeah, especially if especially if it's a culture that's really kind of different and strange. That's my favorite type of kind of holiday where I have no idea what's happening. That's my favorite.
Yes, very. Well, I mean, all the foreigners that I meet, they are very surprised with the openness and how like welcoming Serbs are. So, and
Okay.
we are good hosts. We like to host.
Oh, nice.
And to show our country. So, well, thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for joining me today. I would just love if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, so everybody can hear it from you.
Yeah, sure.
Then...
Yeah. So my name's Christian. I'm an English teacher. I was born in Australia, but I haven't lived in Australia for more than 20 years now. I have a small school here in the north of Spain where I live. I live in Spain now. Unfortunately, my school is closed because of coronavirus. I don't know when it's going to open again. And
it's all vague.
Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? A lot of uncertainty. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel and other social media channels where I call myself Kangaroo English. Yeah, my mission is to try to, I don't know, maybe to try and spread more truth about language learning, right? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, that's why I invited you here. I would want my audience and everybody who's watching now to see like that there are people with like from around the world who think and say things that I'm trying to say, because I'm a professor of languages as well. I teach Serbian and English here in Serbia.
Okay.
And since forever I knew that something is wrong. Like obviously I never felt comfortable in teaching the way I was taught to teach, and it was always uncomfortable for me, and I never saw the results that I wanted to see in my students. So I spent years and years of trying to find something that's going to work, and recently I just stumbled upon a method called TPRS. Don't know if you're familiar with it. I've been
No.
teaching
What is CPRS? Tell me.
TPRS, teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling.
Okay. Okay.
So basically, it's a full-on conversational method. You speak 90% of the time in the lesson, and
Okay.
you and your students are creating stories, statement by statement, and then asking questions along the way. And in questions, you get to absorb the grammar passively, actually.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's something that works quite good with my students because I'm like kind of on the way to specialize for conversational English and Serbian, and with people who have fear of speaking, whose main goal is just to speak. You know, they don't necessarily want to do tests, get certificates and similar things, but rather want to speak and be able to use English. So this method
Yeah.
actually works perfectly for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for a majority of people, like getting the certificate and, passing the exam, they are like necessary things, that they have to, they're necessary things, but, that's not normally their final objective, right? Like they're not learning a language. They're not investing all that time just so they can have a piece of paper, right? They actually want to have a useful skill. And so, I think any classroom that has the objective of producing a student who can, have a conversation and express themselves, and I think that's a good classroom for most people.
Yeah, that's the feedback that I'm getting. And actually the storytelling method like actually takes away the pressure from the student themselves, because they don't have to think of what they're gonna say. They don't have to come up with the ideas. The story is there. We are just talking about the story, and all the information is there. So the pressure of, oh my God, what I'm gonna say now, which makes you frozen, like it's not there. It's not there because you have characters, you have a problem, and that's what we talk about.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I
I didn't
remember.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I remember there was some research with young children. I think they were maybe 8 or 9 years old, and they had two groups, right? So the first group, the teacher sat and just read a story to them, like read a book. And the second group, it was like interactive storytelling. And that second group, they remembered like 3 times as much vocabulary. They were more confident. So I think, I think that it makes sense to me what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, to me as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still like new. I'm teaching it from last year, so
Okay.
it's a long journey until
Yeah.
I feel like a professional. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. My students are enjoying, and I'm enjoying the results as well. So
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I find it kind of incredible that a lot of, let's say, a lot of teachers and probably even more students don't seem to really care so much about the end result, which is, to me, is just, it's just crazy. I mean,
yeah,
like, why are you going? I mean, I'm sure that you've had this experience, but I had students who would, come to my school and they would give me money so they could have a conversation class, and they wouldn't speak, right? It would be like torture. Like I would say, what did you do yesterday? And they'd say, nothing. And I'm like, listen, you're paying me so that we can be here and have a conversation. You have a responsibility to make an effort. Like, if you want the results, they're not going to, the process is important, right? The process is important. Yeah.
just transplant the knowledge into my head, please.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ability to speak. But that's what that's the picture that I used for announcing this slide with you. The picture where you said, like, if your teacher cares more about you than your English, then That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's exactly what you said. You know, a lot of students, and actually, you know, I don't. In a lot of ways, I don't blame them, because this is a result of their conditioning, right? Their conditioning from the education system, to which kind of tells them that, you know, that learning a language is this kind of mechanical process, right? And exactly what you said, you can transplant the information into someone's head, and so they come to class with this idea that you know, if they just find the right teacher, if they find the right method, or, you know, it's going to happen. But, you know, and that's why we need to, you know, show students in class that, you know, that yeah, it's about interacting. They have to bring effort. They have to bring motivation. It's not going to happen any other way.
To, like you say, the willingness to risk and just accept the fear and go along with it. You know, there's no other solution. So
Exactly.
For the first question, let me ask, like, what do you recommend? How do you advise to combat the fear? And just one more thing, for everybody asking about TPRS, since this live is not about TPRS, you can all DM me after the live, and I'll be glad to share the information. So,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's probably lots of good information online, right, about TPRS. What can you do about fear? Well, you know, fear. The thing is that fear is actually a very well understood thing, right? Because, you know, in reality, like the fear of going into a conversation is the same fear that stops people from doing other things in their life, right? Like fear is fear. Okay, so it's like fear of failing, fear of looking stupid in front of people. You know, these are all based in the same kind of mechanism. And you know, clinical psychology has had solutions for this problem for a very long time. And the solution is that you have to confront the fear, right? And that's basically,
there is no other solution.
I know that seems, I know for a lot of people that is not a satisfying answer, right? They like, no, there must be something we can do. There must be, again, it's like this search for this magic technique, the magic solution. But, you know, if you want to really eliminate your fear, you have to do the things that make you scared again and again and again until you're not scared anymore.
You have to gain the confidence, and you gain the confidence by doing. I mean, that.
Exactly. And I mean, you know, another thing is, you know, a lot of people say to themselves, you know, maybe in 3 months I'll be ready. You know, I just need a little bit more level, you know, so another 500 words of vocabulary. I just need a little bit more, and then I'll be ready. But that day never comes, right? It's like there is no magical day when you're like, okay, I'm ready.
It's not about the vocabulary; it's about the fear.
Exactly. It's about the fear, and I mean, and I think this. I have you know, I have my own feelings about this, but you know, my favorite type of student is the type of student who has really bad English, right? But will not stop talking, right? That's my favorite type of student, because, you know, I know that we can, you know, we can do things together because they're not afraid. You know, and actually the most difficult kind of student is the student who comes to class with the idea that they shouldn't use their language unless they can be perfect. You know, that's a really difficult mindset to work with.
Yeah, you just have to accept it. And my mindset was exactly the same in my studies, in my university. I ended up in third year, like, at a risk of failing completely or making a decision. Okay. Am I going to actually speak it and use it, or am I just going to quit this faculty and go something else? And that's when I decided, okay, this is year you gotta you gotta make it or break it. And that was the year when I decided, okay, I'm gonna use it and I'm gonna speak it and I'm gonna let my teachers correct me and I'm gonna look maybe stupid, not stupid. It's in my head I'm looking stupid, but to other people you don't look stupid. And that was the year when I actually finished it. I mean, when I graduated and when
Wow.
I got the most improvement. When I
Wow.
made
Wow.
a decision to, yes, I will look stupid, yes, I will make mistakes, but then with repeating and listening to the comments and the critiques and everything, I improved and I got better. And that's how it happened for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first moved to Spain, I because I didn't speak Spanish at all, but I had spent some time, like some holidays. I'd been on holiday in Spain a few times, and so I had learnt. I had the phrase book where you memorize different, let's say tourist phrases. Where's this? What time is it? Etc. And I remember we were looking when I moved here. I was looking for a teacher, and we found this American woman to teach us Spanish. And in the first class, she asked me. She said, "Christian, like, how is your Spanish? How much do you know?" And I said, "Well, I said, I don't really know the grammar." I said, "But I've got a really big vocabulary," which because I kind of felt, like because I could say, water and bread and biscuits and I had a huge vocabulary, but really I had no vocabulary at all. Um, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because I think you have to accept your ignorance, right? You have to say, you know what, actually, I don't know everything. And actually, I have a lot to learn. Like, you have to be open to, like you say, you have to be open to looking stupid and making mistakes. And you have to be open to someone telling you that, that you're wrong, right? And you can do better. And
Yes.
yeah.
Detach it from
Yeah.
your personality. If you don't know a second language, doesn't mean that you're stupid. You're very intelligent in your native language. Learning another language doesn't mean that you're like people need to detach it from the illusion. It's representing their intelligence and their personality. And
Yes, exactly. I mean, I understand that it's difficult, right? Because, someone can be so articulate in their native language, and they can be so, let's say, intelligent and knowledgeable. But then, you take that person and you put them in their second language, and they just feel like a big baby, right? They can't, they
like a
feel stupid.
4-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand that, um, but I think people are interested in what you have to say, and they will always try to find meaning, and they'll always try to look past your mistakes and your terrible pronunciation. And people want to have conversations. I think it's a deep human thing. And
Yeah.
if people just tried it, right? If they're afraid and they tried it, they would discover that it's not so terrifying, right?
And then by using and reusing and reusing and reusing, you get better and better. But you need to start using it. That's the
Yeah,
trick.
exactly. I mean, if you also look at it from the other perspective, um, I think language is a really great democracy, right? Because no matter how much money you have, or let's say how much intelligence you have, this is not something that you can find a shortcut to. It's not something you can cheat on. You have to do the hard work. So, no matter how much money you have or how much, your level of education, if you do the hard work, you can have something that, that the richest person in the world can't have. So,
Yeah.
I think I think that's something people should remember, right? It's a total democracy.
Yes, exactly. I like how your explanation, your idea. Very nice. Yeah, and that's something that you can be proud of, like actually of achieving.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is the great achievement.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah. So, I mean, regarding your revolution that you are talking about, what do you mean when you say burn the textbooks? What do you have against textbooks and the traditional system of learning?
I mean, the problem that I have with textbooks, I mean, there's a few problems. I think the first problem is that really textbooks are designed to go with standardized testing, right?
Yeah.
In reality, textbooks are not designed to teach people a language. They're designed to make it easy for you to test your students at the end of the term. And so because of that, you know, textbooks focus on things that can be right and wrong. Because if you have a school with 800 students, you know, and you want to give them a score at the end of the year, you have to simplify what language is, because it's too complicated. It's too much hard work to really understand levels of language. So you have to have yes and no questions. So you take this big, complicated, beautiful, flexible thing, that language, and you reduce it to, you know, put the right word in the right box so that we can say it's yes or no, or you know, put the words in the right order so that we can say yes or no. And in reality, you know, that's not how language works. That's not how we should test language.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I mean, so that's the main problem, is that you know, it's not about learning. And the second thing is that a textbook is the same for every student in that school or in that country, right? And the whole point of teaching, of good teaching, is about, you know, treating your students as individuals. So, you know, the idea that everybody should learn exactly the same thing in exactly the same week, with no regard for, you know, like, I don't know exactly the situation, but I imagine that they're in, you know, in Serbia, that you have these textbooks from Cambridge or whatever,
Yeah.
with stories about, you know, Big Ben and the London Eye, and, you know, this is just ridiculous, because, you know, is everyone who's learning English in Serbia going to move to London and live there? No, right? We should be, you know, introducing Serbian culture and doing things that are important to Serbian people, but just doing them in English. And workbooks destroy all of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there was someone in the comments who mentioned Teaching Unplugged by Scott Thornbury and Luke Meddings. Yeah. And yeah, that's an example of how a teacher can, you know, do things differently in the classroom. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, what is I'd be curious about because at the beginning of this conversation, you said that, you know, you thought that there were some things that were wrong with the system in Serbia.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be curious to hear what happens there. Like, what problems do you have exactly?
Well, I mean, like in general, like in every textbook, I think, well, like the methods itself and doing the workshop with them, like, opened my eyes and gave me some answers to it. But I think the main problem is also that they go through vocabulary really quickly, and you don't get enough repetition of certain words, and you just move on and move on and move on, and new vocabulary, and you need repetition, you need use in order to activate the vocabulary, in order to transfer it from the passive to active vocabulary, and that doesn't happen in textbooks. I think There's too many words, too much vocabulary, and you don't get the chance to repeat it enough.
Yep, totally agree. Again, but that again is it's the pressure, because you need to finish that unit so that we can test you.
You need to know those 2,000 words.
Yeah.
If you want to go to a next level. Well, yes, I mean, and that's the problem. People here will always, 90% of Serbs will tell you that their problem is grammar,
Uh-huh.
and that their problem are tenses in English language. Like 90% people that writes to me, it's either fear or, but then what the fear is, yes, I don't know grammar and I make mistakes with tenses because test will like just slap you. No, you should use present continuous. It wasn't present simple tense, you know. And it doesn't matter that you try to express yourself. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. But again, the psychology is that you're going to improve actually by making mistakes and listening listening the teacher or listening native speakers or whoever, like where you like the outputs, the correct input, sorry, the correct input. By being exposed to correct inputs, you will your brain will slowly notice patterns, and you will start correcting your own mistakes by exposing yourself more and more to the language. But you can't just wait that all tenses are perfect in your head and then start.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, I think that people think that grammar is only these kind of rules, you know, and especially this focus on, because most textbooks are organized by the tense structures, right? So it's like, you know, we start at present simple, and then we do past, and then we do present perfect, and so that's, you know, grammar becomes associated with kind of tense and maybe word order, but really the word grammar, I mean, all grammar is an explanation of how the language works, right? And so that's everything, you know. That's like grammar is a much bigger thing than what you find in, let's say, grammar textbooks. You know, grammar includes intonation, you know, and pronunciation. You know, grammar includes you know, the way that you ask a question. You know, not you know, not the whether you put the verb and the subject first. No. Grammar includes an explanation of why you would do that, right? So it's actually more. A grammar is more, I think, a book about the psychology of a language. And I think, you know, if
the theoretical part.
Yeah, like if students, I think if students thought of grammar in a more, as a more, I don't know, if they thought of grammar as something more poetic rather than more, let's say, mathematical, then they would actually look forward to a grammar class, you know,
Yeah.
because it would be more of an exploration of the kind of beauty of each language. Like I'm sure that, you know, if we sat down together, like I'm sure that there are some really amazing things about the Serbian language that, you know,
amazing and difficult.
Of course, and like super difficult, but also amazing. And I think by asking some big questions about Serbian, you know, I could understand like how it works in a deeper level, you know, without ever asking you, well, how does present simple work? You know, like I think we need to make some changes.
When you understand why, you're gonna know how.
Exactly. Thank you. I love that. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Why is the question? Why is the question?
Yeah, I like that. Well, I mean, you have half an hour, so it's coming to an end. But I want you to share. I know that you have interviewed really a lot of great people, great linguists, researchers, academics in language studying and acquisition. Can you sum up what you learned from them? How should one approach to language learning?
I think after talking to so many people, the one thing I realize is that there's a lot of things that we still don't know, right? Like a lot, like, and even some really basic things like how is language stored in the brain? is language innate, or is it something that we learn just because we're intelligent? There's really big and, let's say, simple questions, and we don't know the answers, which was really surprising to me, right? That was one thing I learned. But I think the second thing is, the other side of that is that there is a lot of things that we do know, that there's been lots of investigations and studies about, what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of the things that do work, that have been proven to work, we don't do them in the classroom. And that makes me sad, and just to give you a simple example, the research is really clear that sitting and reading books is probably the best way to learn vocabulary, right? Just sitting and reading.
That's what I've been telling you, people. Keep reading.
Exactly. But like, how many language classrooms are actually just giving their kids books and letting them read for 1 hour? In public education, it's not going to happen ever, right? Because
it's actually teaching that habit of learning.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we know it works. We know that it's much more effective than doing like let's say a list of vocabulary from a workbook. But we're not doing it because, I think, for two reasons. One, because it doesn't feel like teaching, right?
Yes.
Because teachers, they want to work hard. They're very conscientious people. They're hardworking people. They want to do a good job. And standing in front of your class and just watching them read, it feels like you're being lazy. It feels like you're, it's like, what am I doing?
What am I teaching here?
What am I teaching? Like, what? But that's the best thing for your students. So,
yeah.
And I think, again, and the second reason is because, there's pressure to learn exactly the vocabulary in that little box, because that's what's going to be on the test.
So yeah, the pressure is on teachers as well as on students. Like, we should also stop thinking about how we look and making ourselves look like great teachers, and focus more on actually results of our students. And
there's I think we all have to remember the really difficult position that teachers are in too, right? Because they are under pressure to get things done in the classroom. And, that's a really difficult situation. And I don't, teachers, a lot of teachers, they don't like it, right? They don't want to, they don't want to do the workbook. They hate it as much as the students do. And so that's what I'm interested in trying to change, right? I'm trying to maybe show some evidence that, we can do it in a different way, and it will actually be better for everybody. But obviously that's not easy to do, to change.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, you did write that little, I can't call it ebook, but like
right. Yes. The little PDF.
Little PDF.
Yes.
And I'm going to do my part of the work. I'm gonna translate it to Serbian, and it's gonna be available on my website once it's done. It's gonna be available for free download.
Amazing. Thank you. That's amazing.
I'm also
That's amazing. Yes. Well, I mean, my objective for this year, because I think I realized that what I've been doing for the past kind of 5 years is I've been complaining a lot. I've been saying, like, this doesn't work, and I hate this, and you shouldn't do that, but I haven't been offering any like practical solutions, right? So this year I'm really interested in like developing classroom materials and things that teachers and students can really use. So I mean, I would love to hear from you about if you have any ideas.
Great.
Or anything.
Great. I will write to you.
Yeah. That would, I mean, I think another thing that I've realized recently is that being alone, like not collaborating with teachers, not talking to teachers is just not good. We have to have conversations, right, with people, and that's why I'm so happy to talk to you. Actually, this is the first.
Spread the word.
Yeah. This is the first Instagram that I've done in ages, in like 6 months, I think. And it's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
I'm glad this is the first one in a while, and
Yeah.
this was like amazing talk for me. I had great time, and thank you for accepting the invitation. And I hope
My
to
pleasure.
talk to you in the future as well.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk on Instagram, and yeah. Thank you very much to everybody for watching. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you normally like take questions at the end. I don't know if you want to answer some questions or.
If you have time, we can.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah. No
available.
problems.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
guys, if you have questions, now is the time. There is one. How can we put the words together when we don't know the grammar?
Well, I don't know.
Just
Do you
put them
want
together.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to say the one simple rule of let's say grammar, and this is true in any language, you know, we put the important things in a sentence together, right? Like things that go together in reality go together in your sentence, right? So if you're saying you know, I go to the cinema at 8 o'clock, then you know you want to keep I and you want to keep go together, because you know in reality those things go together. And where do you go? Well, you go to the cinema, so we're gonna keep them close together. But the 8 o'clock part, you know, the at 8 o'clock, well, you know, that's more flexible, right? We can put that at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. So, I mean, that's a very simplified explanation, but to make a sentence, you put things together.
Explanations are the best. Yes.
Yes. If it goes together in reality, then it goes together in your sentence, right?
Yes, and you have to play around with it. You always, for the basic levels, of course, you're going to need the subject, you're going to need the doer, you're going to need the verb, the action of doing, and you're going to need the object of what you're doing. So start with that. So I teach English, for example. So sometimes it's going to be I teaches or he teach, and there's going to be mistakes. But like we said, by reading a lot and listening a lot, you're going to start hearing those little signs. Okay, he as, she as, and then you're going to start making patterns and improving.
Exactly. I mean, do you have articles in Serbian or not?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. I know how you feel. Yeah. And you know, yeah, like that's an example of how, you know, Serbian and English would be very different. And I can imagine that a Serbian person learning English would probably forget their articles, right?
Yeah,
at the beginning,
that's one of the tells, you know, when you're not a native English speaker. One of the, even like when you are advanced or even on C2 level, like I think there can always be that one mistake of dropping an article here and there, and yeah, it's.
Yep. But
Well,
I mean,
what can you do? I mean, I'm teaching English, and I know that I make mistakes with articles. I mean, that's normal thing. I mean, it wasn't my native
yeah,
tongue,
exactly.
And it's one of the most difficult things to comprehend, especially if you don't have it in your native tongue, like I do.
Exactly. And you know, I think as well, teachers, if there's any teachers watching this, you know, what they have to remember is that, you know, it's not their job to be perfect in English, you know, because if you were the only person they ever spoke to in the whole universe, then yeah, that would be a problem, right? That would be a problem.
You would have that responsibility.
And sometimes in a way it is, like I know for a lot of students who don't do activities at home, you know, the only English they have contact with is their teacher, right? And you know, that's just bad. It's just bad because you become accustomed to one person and the way they speak and their intonation. And you know, the job of the teacher is not to be the model for English. You know, your job is to inspire your students to go and do stuff when they're not in the classroom, actually. Right? That's the main job. Yeah.
Exactly. To feel them confident to use it outside of the classroom. So one question was also, can we get wider grammar knowledge through reading books too? Well, yes, of course. Yes, exactly. Like we said, and like Christian said, reading is one of the best ways to improve your language.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, you know, like you said, when you're exposed to input, you know, subconsciously, you start to notice patterns and structures, and they start to become, you start to form these habits. So yes, I mean, I don't think, you know, you shouldn't only read, like that would be bad to only read, but you should definitely be reading a lot. And if you combine that with some deliberate study of grammar structures, then that's a winning combination.
It has all to do with focus, what you're focusing on. When you start reading, you're going to focus at one thing. But when you see, for example, he says, when you're not gonna notice that S in the beginning, because you're gonna be focused on pronouncing it or on understanding it, so you're not gonna notice it at all. But once you read it the 15th time, well, there's an S here. Like, what's up with this S? Like, so you know, when you read and when you get exposed many times to the same word, which happens when you read a lot, you're gonna improve. You're gonna notice things that you're gonna improve.
Exactly. There's another question here from Nika Perosans. I have problems increasing vocabulary in a cultural context. An expression could be grammatically correct, but it's not usually said. Yeah, I mean, just as an example, you know, in American English, like reaching for the stars is something which is, you know, it's a good thing, right? It's like, I have these objectives. I want to be like reaching for the stars. I want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Ambitious, right? I'm ambitious. I want to be number one. The same expression or the equivalent expression to reach for the stars in Mandarin is actually a negative thing. What it means is that you are, you know, you have a big ego. You're like trying to be more than you are, right? So it's the same idea, but the culture changes everything, right? And so I think that, and this is what we were talking about, right, with workbooks, is that it's crazy to import American culture or British culture into the classroom when maybe it's not compatible. And so, you know, like you said, if I don't know, you know, how this is interpreted in Serbia, for example, but you know, if you're going to be using your English, it's a positive thing. Okay. But you know, but even little things like maybe in Serbia, it's rude to ask people, how much money do you make every year? Like, how much money do you get paid for your job?
Yeah.
In British English, that's kind of rude, right? In American English, people talk about how much they get paid very openly.
They brag about it.
They brag about it. Exactly. So this is not, you know, these are not really language questions, right? These are cultural questions, and it's so important to understand both, you know?
Yeah. You don't need to, I really like what you said. Like, there is that pressure of just learning about the culture as well with language, even if it doesn't interest you. I mean, okay, some of us want to know more about British and American culture, but some of us don't. I mean, we just want to use English and learn how to personalize it and be able to talk with it. Use it as a tool, which it is.
Exactly. Exactly. I think there was a question that I saw, which was how do you teach a language without a workbook? I mean, my question would be, well, how do you teach English with a workbook? 'Cause, I mean, the answer to my answer would be, on the very first day of class, you spend the whole day finding out what your students need, and talking about it, asking about it, and then you build a curriculum from there.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple, really.
Yes, well, depending on their level and the need for, obviously, if they are beginners, you want to start with the most frequent words, but not formal words that are never used in ordinary conversations. Everything in textbooks are way too formal. I mean, that's the British culture. You know, you have to be so formal about everything.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, in the streets, you don't talk like that. And you don't go, hello, sir. You know, you just don't talk like that. You need normal stories.
A fine day to you. How do you do? Like, yeah, I mean, no. In fact, you know, one often a non-native student will try to make their communication so complicated, right? They try to create such elaborate sentences that no native speaker would ever use. They make their life more difficult.
There are so many memes about it, like how a sentence sounds said from a native speaker and how it says from a ESL student.
Exactly. And, you know, so simplicity in language is beauty, really, in a lot of ways. What about this one? How to break the barriers of talk like a native mindset? Well, I mean,
that's a question for you.
Well, let's just change the question a little bit, and let's say, how do you talk like somebody who is 180 centimeters tall? How do you talk like somebody who has blonde hair? How do you talk like somebody who prefers to eat chocolate cake instead of carrot cake? Like,
that's perfect.
These are things you have no control over. You're not ever going to talk like a native speaker because you're not a native speaker. And so, you know, wasting your time trying to do this is the same as trying to be taller or to be a different age, you know, or to change anything that you have no control over.
And like you said on one of your posts, instead you should rather focus on pronunciation and making your sounds more clear and understandable. And that's actually all that you should focus on.
Yeah. I mean, if you go into a conversation and you have a great conversation and it finishes, then you have succeeded, right? You've succeeded. If you go into a conversation and the other person's like, what? I can't, did you say, you know, if that's what happens, then yeah, there's things you need to fix, right? With for example, your pronunciation. So that's the only important measure of your abilities, right? Is can you do what you want to do?
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know why I'm so white. I don't know what's happening with my camera.
White.
Yeah, I'm really like
maybe
intensely.
Maybe of the light. There is some light here.
Oh, it's not very. I don't know. Technology.
There's another question. How can teachers include cultural issues into teaching a language? Well, from my experience in teaching this method, you make stories. You just come up with stories. You make up a character. You give him a problem to solve. You put him in a background, in a situation, and you tell a story about it.
Nice.
So.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think people need to remember that like 85 to 90% of all conversations in English right now, every day, are between non-native speakers. And that's not going to change. In fact, that number will get bigger and bigger and bigger every day. So, and you know, so that means that the only culture you need to care about is the culture of the place where you're going to be using your English. And that's probably not New York or London or, you know, So and again, this is part of that first class when you ask the students what they need and you find out what they need. You know, if it's a question of, you know, my students need it because they're going to get jobs working in international contexts, you know, maybe I don't know, because I don't know, like, what's a big industry in Serbia? I don't know. Like,
Well, I would say maybe, I don't know, like trade, probably the biggest, which is
okay?
not really good, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, trade. Yeah, it's complicated. But like anybody that does international business, you know, if you go to Japan, for example, you know, you need to deeply understand the culture, the business culture. You know, it's like stupid little things. It's like, and I'm inventing this, but you know, it's like you don't accept the first offer, you don't accept the second offer, you only accept the third offer, right? When they ask you, do you want a cup of tea? Like these weird rules, you know, and you have to play by the rules. Yeah. So.
Well, again, it's from what you can achieve by reading and learning. That's what you need to do. I mean, people come to me like, well, do you prepare for the exams? I need business English. I need like, what is business English? I mean, you need to speak English, and by reading what interests you, you're gonna acquire that vocabulary. But the main goal is for you to break the barriers, to start talking, and to learn how to read regularly. I mean, that's the same goal for everybody. And then depending on our interests and needs, we read different materials, different.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I've seen some business English like textbooks. Wow. I mean, if you want a book that will destroy any enthusiasm you have for learning a language, go and buy a business English textbook. I promise you'll never open it.
What's the stock market looking like today?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen, I mean, there's a culture here in Spain where I teach, you know, there's a culture of like really intense kind of memorization. And I remember someone came to class with a business English textbook from a private academy. Like they'd written the book and it was about this big. And wow, I have never in my life seen anything like it. It was just hundreds and hundreds of pages of sentence transformations and fill in the blanks activities. And I mean, I suspect that nobody in the history of the planet has ever completed that book. Like, you would have to be a psychopath to actually finish that book. Maybe it's just me.
we're a very, very determined person.
Yeah, wow. Determined and very bored, I would say. Yeah, and look, I mean, there's here, Pedacitos Demi says, you know, business English textbooks kill the motivation in teachers too. Yeah, exactly. I mean, because you know, it's not like there's a lot of innovation, right? It's not like, wow, I can't wait to see what Cambridge is releasing in 2021 in their textbooks. No, all they do is they regurgitate the same activities again and again and again, year after year. So if you've been teaching...
The methodology is, in my opinion, completely wrong. Even that can be taught through storytelling. And that was one question I would like to explain a little bit more about storytelling. You need to personalize, you need to get your student involved. And you can do that by, like I said, coming up with a character and then telling your student that they are that character. So you as a student are now a broker on Wall Street, and what you do, what you go and do. So you learn culture in that way as well. So we're going to put it in a surrounding of a Wall Street or whatever your need is, and you're going to be the character. You're going to be actually doing things and acquiring the vocabulary in that way. And
Yeah.
then by questions like who, why, what, where, you get the repetition, you get the change through persons, and you practice grammar as well in that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a myth about native speakers as well, is that just because they're native speakers, they know how to do everything in English. Like I don't have any vocabulary for Wall Street. I wouldn't be able to have any kind of good conversation about this because I don't know anything about it. And I've been speaking English for 42 years.
Of course, whenever I talk to my bookkeeper, I'm like, can you speak in Serbian, please? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't know. You know what you use.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a lot of students, they feel bad, right? They're like, oh, why can't I, talk about accounting? Why can't I talk about going to the hospital? And well, not many people can, right? Even think about in your native language, like really, like, can you have really good conversations about anything? No, it's you need experience in the subject, right? And as you said, it starts with the student.
You need to use it. And one of my colleagues here, she's also an English teacher, and she likes to say and always reminds her students, use it or lose it. You need to use it. Whatever you don't use, you're gonna lose it. So use it.
Exactly. I mean,
that was a little rhyme there for the end.
I mean, look, there's someone here. Aida Calvante says, I was asked to teach a British accent, and I'm Brazilian. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. This is the subject of a whole nother Instagram live, the British accent.
Yeah. The British accent. Well, we can do more of this. I see that a lot of people liked it, and like I said, it was really great talking to you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Speak with Christian. Somebody wants to speak with you. Well, they can DM you. Can you recommend some English books you think that would help us? Any English books. You should try. I mean, maybe graded readers. Whatever genre you like, you should stick with that, and that's gonna keep you reading.
Great advice. The best advice. The best advice. Whatever's interesting to you.
Try with graded books. If my student have a list of vocabulary, how to learn it easily, how to help him or her make up a story with that vocabulary. Once again, I want to improve my list.
I mean, there was a really famous study done back in like 1965, where they took two groups of people, and one group they asked them to memorize a list, the other group they asked them to make a story with the words, and the story group remembered basically all of the vocabulary, and the list group remembered, I think, 10 or 20%. So again, this is an example of something that we have known for 50 years, and we don't do it in general in the classroom, which makes me sad.
Stories. We remember stories. People remember stories. So use the stories to teach and to learn as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, I have my next lesson starting soon. So, I mean, I really had this was an amazing live. I'm going to save it so more people can see it in the future, for sure. I'm going to keep in touch with you, Christian, for whatever. We will see.
Yes, we'll chat.
Yeah. And best of luck with your work. And I'm excited to see what you're preparing for this year.
Yes, great. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Sasha. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, sure. And thanks to everybody watching.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.